Hello and welcome. This is a little tutorial. We're here at Beehive Quilt Shop. I'm Anna Rose White, and I have a guest artist here today. This is Nancy Lowe, and she's going to show us a little bit about these, how to make art quilted postcards. So Nancy, can you show us a little bit about, what you do and explain how would we make one of these art postcards?
So what I make is quilted art postcards, and they're really simple and fun to make. They're quick and I love making them. I make them all the time, and so I decided to go ahead and start making instructions because folks were asking me how to make them and how to put them together. So I put together a little tutorial, so to speak, on how to make it. So let's just start out with sample one, and there are two different ways that you can make these. You can make them either with a cardstock back or with a fabric back. So you have a choice.
Yes.
So it's just whichever your preference is. And you can write on these and you can mail them directly through the mail, through the post office, and send them to all your family and friends, and everybody just loves them. So let's start out with the first sample. It'll be a fabric backed postcard, and so this is the sample.
Hold it up close to the camera here. And so it's just really darling. I love it.
And the back of it is a fabric back, and you want to use a light colored fabric on the back of it, so you can write your message and your return address and everything on there.
Makes total sense. That's used a nice white on white snowflake there.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so what I've done is I've made up little instructions here, and so we start out with enough fabric or scraps to make your top, just like you would a normal quilt. So, and the size is generally a minimum, I would say, a 4.5 by 6.5.
Yeah, I think that's a nice size.
Yeah, to start out with. So you have your scraps here, and so what this is an AccuQuilt
Die.
mitten, a die. It's the mitten die. And so I used it. So I started out with just red flannel fabric on this one. Okay. And
Is there any kind of interfacing in there?
there is. On the back I use a fusible interfacing.
And this is the
Not interfacing, but back. Yes.
Thermoflam batting, which is like 971F.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And I have written that in the instructions, what it is.
Awesome.
So I've gone ahead and adhered that to the back, and then I pre-quilted my fabric.
And it looks really nice.
So then I can add my applique after I've done that, and you just would add your applique like you would any other applique. I choose to use Wonder Under and do raw edge applique. So
I think that gives it a really nice like vintage vibe, because I think that's
agree.
why they have so much character, I think, when it has a little bit of that. So unlike a quilt, you want to minimize fraying in a quilt.
Right.
But when you're making like an art postcard like this, it just gives it texture.
Yes,
which I think is cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then after you have your top completed, then what you're going to do is you're going to add your stabilizer. And I use a double-sided fusible stabilizer. And I've written here my preferred is the Peltex double-sided fusible ultra firm stabilizer.
And it is crunchy, but it's great. It's great.
It's stiff, but it's pliable at the same time.
Yeah, so it's commonly used in like bags if you're going to make a bag base interfacing, so it gives you that just good stabilization.
Correct. So, and since it's double-sided fusible, make sure you use, a cover.
Oh, yes, because there's bumpy sides on both sides when it's a double-sided fusible.
Yeah.
If you happen to like accidentally buy like a single-sided Peltex or Craftex, those are whatever side has the bumps, that's the fusible side.
Right. Right. And I like to use the double-sided because then I can adhere either my cardstock or my fabric to the back of it also.
I love that.
So, and so then after you adhere your stabilizer, then the next thing you want to do, first of all, before you attach this to the stabilizer, you want to go ahead and write your message, you know, on there, your return address and everything, because it's easier to do instead of when it's all put together and ironed on.
That makes
you have that
sense.
bumpy side.
That
It
makes
makes it a
sense.
little difficult.
Yeah. And I think these are cool, especially too if you're like handwriting is like with a microtext pen or something like that.
Correct.
It's so precious when you have something in someone else's handwriting. So like I've just seen a lot of people and they're like, oh, I don't have good penmanship. But what's neat about however you write is that it's very personal to you.
Absolutely.
And those that are in your family. Like that's why we cherish handwritten recipe cards more than a PDF printout. So, you know, you may want to just send that through a printer and type something through it. But if you are sending a special note to a grandchild or a family friend, like having it in your own uniquely imperfect handwriting is very special.
Absolutely.
And so you could always practice on a similar sized piece of paper, you know, if you really wanted to make sure that it would fit in a space, but you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So after you write your message on here, then you just fuse it on, iron it on to the back.
Do you use steam or no steam, or just follow the manufacturer's instructions?
Follow the manufacturer, but I do not use steam.
Okay.
So I
Just
do
a
not.
just a nice hot press
Very
with the
hot
pressing
press.
cloth.
Yeah. And so then everything is all stuck together then, like this. And then what I do, I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the sleeve so you can see this a little bit
and
better.
you put them in really nice clear plastic packaging.
Cellophane envelopes. Yes.
And you can just get those.
You can get them at an office supply store or online. So they're pretty
But it
easy.
does give it just a very professional look.
Yes, it does. And so then on the, once you have it all together, then you want to go around the edges, and I do a satin stitch. You can bind these like a regular quilt if you would like to, but my preference is to always do a satin stitch. And I use a 4.6 width on my machine, and I use 0.3 length. And
great.
usually when I do a fabric back card, I usually only have to go around once to get that really nice full satin stitch.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to kind of go slowly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have your needle preference on there, or what type of needle when they're going through that craft text?
No, I just a 90-14 or an
90-14,
80-12, whichever you prefer. So
It just looks marvelous. And then you also bedazzle a few of these.
I
with some
do.
rhinestones.
You are able to do that if you would like to. I
see it
use
shining.
rhinestones, the heat set ones, and sometimes I use rickrack.
Here's one of her. So, and you were telling us too. So, like we're doing this as a guild activity. But if you start out with something easy like a mitten or using a simple shape like this, if you do something like this really amazing jack-o'-lantern, this is a little bit more advanced. But like if you've done other like ridge applique or things like that, it can, you know. But those red rhinestones really just. They had the perfect touch to this spooky, spectacular pumpkin right here. So, and then there's another button. So, like Nancy said, you can take these and send them through the post office. So, some of these ones that you made out of extra embellishments, you may just pay a little extra in postage, but it's totally worth it. And of course, another great reason to collect appropriate seasonal stamps because that will also add a little bit of magic to your postcard. But yeah, I think it's just great. So if you add this is a cardstock size one instead of using the fabric backed.
Yes, and that's what this other sample over here is. This is a cardstock backed one. So it's got cardstock on the back.
And I love how you put the Happy Holidays, and that's printed just through your normal printer on your cardstock.
Actually, no, these are a rubber stamp.
Ooh, a stamp.
So I just, went to like, I think it was Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
They have a good selection of rubber stamps, and that's what I buy. And because you do not have to put the word postcard up here.
Yeah.
So you do not have to do that. So I also want to add that when mailing them, the postal regulations state that in order for it to be considered an envelope or a postcard, it must be less than 1/4 of an inch thick.
Okay.
So remember that when you're adding rhinestones or buttons.
Your battery's
Or better
embellishments. And
Yeah.
I forgot there was something else too.
And just that 1/4 of an inch. But
Oh, it can't weigh over 1 ounce.
Okay.
So.
Well, perfect.
So.
Well, I think this is such a cool activity, and then your patterns are going to be available. We'll be able to help distribute those Beehive Quilt Shop. Nancy's considering making a few kits or different things like that, so she's currently debating that. So you can look for more updates about Nancy Lowe and her creative business, and she's got her email on there if you have questions. So thanks for
Please email me
watching.
if you have questions.
Yeah, and thanks Nancy for showing
Well,
us, giving
thank
us
you.
permission to be creative. I love it.
Absolutely. Thank you.